Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Wildcat Wonder. I am your host, Sarah Cazell, and I am joined by an awesome guest who I am lucky enough to have known through our work in sports, television, and radio. It is Glenn Parker, a fabulous representative of the University of Arizona, a former player under Dick Tomey on Arizona's football squad back in the late 80s, and now working for the University of Arizona Foundation, doing some really cool stuff that we'll get into in just about a minute. And in between all of that, ho-hum, he also just happened to have a 12-year NFL career. So Glenn, thank you for making time. I really am excited to talk with you today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it is month 6 now of staying in quarantine in this coronavirus pandemic. And I wanted to start off with a fun little fact that I did not know about you until I started doing my research the other day. You are a noted foodie and wine expert, which I have to say, I didn't expect coming from you. But tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's the bald head and goatee that throws everybody. But,
I was going to say, if we're stereotyping, I'm sorry.
Exactly. Now, you know what? When I was in the NFL, I had a chance to explore different things in life. And one of the things I found that I just had a passion for was first cooking, because one, being the youngest of 6 kids, I always kind of had to cook for myself anyways. And then 2, my wife was pregnant and everything she made, she couldn't eat. She'd get sick. So I had to start cooking. And well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be good at it. And I trained with a classical chef, and not hardcore, but just enough constantly every week with him. He took a lot of time with me on a daily basis, and for over a year, where I just got to learn what I was doing and why I liked the things I liked. And that led me into the wine business, where I was an intern at Robert Mondavi for about 7 different off seasons. I would go out there and actually live on property and lead tours and tastings and education and things like that. So yeah, I have a passion for it.
As we mentioned in the introduction, so much of your career has been centered around football, be it in sports, television, and radio, be it coaching throughout your career, and then, of course, playing yourself. But right now you're with the University of Arizona Foundation. You've been with them for about 4 years now. For those who don't know what the foundation is, what do they do, and what do you do?
Well, the foundation is kind of like a private arm of the university, in that it protects the privacy of our alumni and our donors if they so desire. My job is I'm in kind of a dual role in discovery and principal gifts, where I go out and I find alumni that aren't particularly engaged with us at this time, or maybe they have been in the past, aren't now. And my job is to talk with alumni and figure out to what level they want to be engaged, or to what level they want information on us, and then facilitate that relationship and bring them the relationship they want. And it's a lot of fun, because I get to travel quite a bit, put together a trip, go meet a bunch of alumni, spend some time with them, and figure out individually what that person really is looking for from the university in a relationship, and in a manner of what did they get from us and what do they want to give back. And so it's a very rewarding. It's something that I didn't think I'd ever really be in, and now that I'm doing it, the victories few and far between, but when you get a big victory, it feels good.
And you get to do it for your alma mater, which I'm sure elevates how special that is.
In a big way. The passion is there for sure.
Well, you came to Arizona in the late 80s, as I mentioned earlier, to play football under the late Dick Tomey. And when he passed last year, I feel like most of his former players, what they really talked about was not his football mind or how good of a coach he was in that aspect. It was what a loving guy he was, how much he really cared about your character as a person, and not so much what you could do for him on the football field. So I would love to know, what were the biggest life lessons that you learned while playing for Dick Tomey?
Wow, there's so many. It's hard to even begin. But I came to Arizona. I chose Arizona over almost every major college in the country, and I think a lot of people were surprised. I know my parents were a little in shock. They thought I was going to USC for sure, because that was a family school where a lot of people went. And I think that, and when I say that, my mom's side of the family, a lot of my cousins and whatnot went there. My father, I think, was rooting for Texas or one of those. And there was a sense with Dick Tomey and Ron McBride and that entire staff, there was a family sense there that I got amongst the players too, that I didn't get anywhere else. Everywhere else, it seemed like a factory. And here it seemed like a family. And for a guy who was a little older, who didn't play football in high school, I was new to this. It just felt like I had at my junior college, and I wanted that. And for me, it's always just don't give up what you want most in life for what you want most in the moment. And that kind of led me through my time in Arizona. You know, I came to get a degree. That was my whole thought process. And all of a sudden, about the end of my junior year, going into my senior year, it flipped. I found out I was highly ranked and somebody they were going to look at in the NFL. Back then, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all these lists. We didn't, you know, we knew some of the guys we were looking at. You could tell on film or you read a little bit. And it was my brother that sent me an article out of Sports Illustrated that named me as one of the top 5 guys or tackles the next year. And I had to switch that focus. And he was great about talking me through that process of, yeah, you're a senior, but don't lose sight of what it is you want most, just because right now it seems really cool. And that stuck with me through life. Everything I've done when I was playing in the NFL, I had other things going that I wanted to do outside of football or when football ended. And when I was broadcasting, it was the same way. And so that's with me every day, that lesson that he imparted.
That's a really good one. Do you have any favorite Dick Tomey stories to share? That you're allowed to share?
There are so many. You know, honestly, there's the ones where he's yelling at us and he berates John Brandon and I, and you know, tells me I look like a 10-year-old pro and all these different things. But honestly, you know, the best. I mean, well, and what he did in the talent shows was amazing. But to give a sense of who Dick Tomey was, I'll go to a story I told upon inauguration of the Fields. Is that everybody who showed up at my house to recruit me showed up in a suit. These head coaches, very businesslike, looking to impress mom and dad. And I think Dick Tomey did the best job of understanding who I was. Here was a kid who had never played ball, from Huntington Beach, had come from the beach. I mean, I surfed in high school. I still surf as much as possible now. And he showed up at my house in an Aloha shirt and flip-flops. He knew it. He nailed it. And pardon me, he put a map on the floor, got down on the floor, was like, hey, come here, take a look at this. Here's where you're going to be. And I'm sitting on the couch. He goes, no, come down here. And he got me on the floor with him. And he led me on a virtual tour, if it could be called virtual, because we didn't have the internet, but just talking me way through campus. And here you're going to see the palm trees down the mall. And he goes, and here's where you'll be staying if you want to stay in this dorm, or if you get an apartment, here's where you'll park. And he just it was so Dick Tomey that it just, you talk to any player, they have a story like that about Dick.
I can tell you're getting a little bit choked up.
Very much.
Why?
Because I love Dick Tomey, and I still miss him every day.
That's really beautiful. Well, as you just mentioned, you weren't playing high school football. You weren't even playing high school sports. Right. So a career not only at a Power 5 school, but then in the NFL, just it absolutely blows my mind that football wasn't even part of your foundation growing up. How did you eventually start playing football, and when did you start playing football?
Well, really good question. I loved the game. I always did. But like anybody, you think you know the game until you are in it. And so I actually was at the junior college. I was working as a bouncer, and the Rams used to come in there. I had a friend who was going to play at the Golden West, wanted me to go out with him. I think so he'd have somebody on the team that he was better than. And I had a friend at Stanford who was my best friend in the world at Stanford. He's trying to convince me to, go do something. And the Rams had seen me playing basketball, and they were like, aren't you the bouncer? And what are you doing? And it just kind of all snowballed. So I went and I talked to the coach. I thought it was the head coach. It happened to be the offensive line coach. I thought I was going to be a D lineman or a tight end or something fun, and he said, no, you're going to be a left tackle. And so that's how I became a football player, just because I was tired of working as a bouncer, trying to go through school. I just said, if I can get a scholarship anywhere, I don't care where. Back then, and still to this day, you'll see it a lot. There's a lot of NAIA schools, a lot of D2 schools can give partials. NAIA can give fulls. And I was like, that's all I want. I was thinking Carroll College, Montana. I don't care. Montana Tech. I was looking at small schools thinking I can play there. I looked at my size and my speed and thought, if I can just learn, I can play at one of those schools. And I had great coaches at junior college that took me from 0 to full speed in no time. And it came easy to me. And when I say that, one of the things I try to stress with with anybody, when I do a corporate speech, when I'm talking to kids, little kids through high school and on, is I'm the lesson that too many times in life we're told to follow your passion. Probably the worst advice anyone has ever given anybody. People have passions all the time they're not good at. I'm a passionate woodworker, and I wouldn't show you a thing I've ever done woodworking. Right? I'm passionate about it. I love it, but I'm not good.
Okay.
Look at, you look at America's Got Talent, and American Idol. There's millions of people that line up to go on that show because they've got a passion, and most of them suck. I'm sorry, they do. Most of them just suck. They have a passion for music, but that doesn't mean they have any talent for music.
Sure.
Find what you're good at and develop a passion for it. I had no passion for football when I went out. I saw it as an end to get a college scholarship, or means to get a college scholarship, pardon me. And then in college, I loved it enough because it was giving me a scholarship and I was getting my degree. And then when I got to the NFL, I thought, wow, this is a great check. I'm going to love it. And it took me about 3 or 4 years in the NFL until I had an absolute passion for the game. And I didn't want to lose it anymore. I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to lose my job. When I was signed by my agent, he said, I've never heard anybody say what you just said. I go, what's that? He goes, you just want to play long enough to be able to buy a condo in Huntington Beach and surf the rest of your life. I said, yeah, that's all I want to do. I said, as long as I can get a job after that, I can work in a surf shop, as long as I own the condo. And he laughed. He thought, I've never heard that before. And now I know why, because most people have this idea they're going to play forever and amass all this fortune. That's not who I was. But then I developed that passion. I wanted to play 10 years. I wanted to I all of a sudden I was married, had a child, and that transforms your life right there. Now I've got to play for these two, and I need to make it so that they have a life beyond what I can give. And so that passion developed, and then that led to coaching, and it led to broadcast, and yeah. So yeah, I just was lucky. I was good at something, and I developed a passion for it.
Wow, that really is fascinating. So when your final season in the NFL came and went, was it difficult for you to walk away from the game, or was it like, nope, we're on to the next step of life?
Yeah, I was ready. My wife was really ready. I had 2 concussions that year where I was knocked out cold on the field, where I'd had many concussions past. We all do. But these were diagnosed concussions. And my wife just said, aren't we done? Can we be done now? When you're 35, 36 years old, you're already the oldest guy on the field anyways. And yeah, I'm still starting, but getting beat up a little. And she wanted me to be right for my kids. And so it was really an easy decision to make. And I say that with the caveat that when you are out then 5 or 6 years, you're so bummed you didn't play longer. You just, that's why I never tell you, whenever I hear people say, oh, that guy should retire. No, you cannot retire until you're ready, because only that guy gets to make that decision, because football's the one you can never go back and do again. You can go back to basketball or baseball. You can play on the city lights. You can play in an old man league. Football, you never get to play again when it's over. And you miss it, just deeply miss the game. But I was so ready. I already had my irons in the fire for winemaking and for broadcasting, and broadcasting came first. So I was able to transition right into it.
So in your 12 years in the NFL, you had the distinct pleasure of being one of, I believe, 2 players to play in 5 Super Bowls and win none of them. I'm sure you love people bringing that stat up for you.
You know what I do, and I'll tell you why. So in order to look at it as if it's a bad thing, that tells me who you are as a person, and it's easy for me now. You'll never be as good as me. It's a great thing. I was a part of 5 incredible teams. 5 times we got to the pinnacle and just came short, whereas most people never even get a chance at that. Most people never get to summit. Most people never even get to the base camp. I made base camp. I tried the summit 5 times, and I'd try it again right now. If you told me I have a 1% chance of winning a Super Bowl, but I get to play, I'm in. Give me that chance. The people I was around on those teams, the camaraderie we had, the excellence we had is only surpassed in those 5 years by the 5 teams that beat us. And in the NFL, that's the way it is in sports. You have one champion and everybody else ends abruptly.
So the heartache was worth it, is what you're saying.
Absolutely it was, yeah.
We covered this a little bit already, but I want to circle back talking about how you developed your passion after starting your football career. I was just dumbfounded when I realized you hadn't played high school football and then picked it up in junior college in Southern California, then went on to Arizona and got taken in the third round of the 1990 draft. It is really unheard of for a player to make that kind of ascent that rapidly. What was it about you physically and mentally that allowed you to make that ascension?
So physically, boys, unlike girls, tend to mature, and when they're year and a half after they have their first menstrual cycle, they're physically who they're going to be. Now they can gain strength, but that's who it is. Boys are like popcorn. And if I have a whole bag of popcorn, some kernels are going to pop real early, some kernels will pop late, and some will never pop. I just happen to be a real late popping kernel, and when all my friends popped, I didn't. I was a chubby kid, a little immature, and I popped. And I had time to get strength by playing basketball, by surfing. I was always a really good athlete, but that added to it. And so by the time I started playing, one, I was 2 years older than most high school seniors. Two, I had zero bad habits to unlearn because I didn't ever play before. So I didn't have to worry about it. A coach could teach me something and I learned it. And then three, I learned the game in a professional manner in a higher level than you do when you start younger. When kids start in junior college or junior high school or Pop Warner, they learn I've got you, or I run this route. And as they progress, they might say, okay, myself and this guy have those two. I didn't learn it that way. I learned the whole concept at one time. My first coach, offensive line coach, said, where are the safeties? These are your safeties. Here's what defense wants to do. So they showed me gaps. And all you have to know is that they always have to be responsible for those. So he was teaching me like a chessboard instead of a game of war in cards. And by doing that, it exponentially, or I should say, it made it exponentially faster for me to learn because it was simple. It was within the process. And then you take all those other things physically, and it wasn't easy. You knocked on your butt a lot, and you get embarrassed a lot. But you got to get up every morning and say, I want to do that again. And the coaches showed faith. And then, of course, along comes the fact that you start winning and you start doing well. And you start realizing you're as good as the starters. And I remember one time I said to the coach, I'm not playing. I know I'm as good as them. And he says, we know you are too. That USC's already said they're offering you. And they aren't offering those guys. But you're going to wait your turn just the way they did. So good lesson in being patient, and just because you're better doesn't mean you necessarily get what you want.
Sure. Now let's pivot to your sports broadcasting career. As we mentioned earlier, many, many years spent in both television and radio, up in the booth, in the studio, kind of running the whole gamut. But I want to take you back, or have you take us back rather, to your first time calling an Arizona football game, because you've covered the Pac-12 specifically for many, many years. Do you remember the first time you got up in the booth at Arizona Stadium?
Fox Sports Southwest, I believe is what it was, but it was Arizona. It was myself and Dave Sitton on the call. And Dave, one of my best friends in the world. I love the man. I miss him dearly. He was just fantastic with me. And he took me along on a journey, and it lasted for that season. We were together for, I think, 3 games, maybe 4, and just loved it. It was during the John Malkovich years. And right after that, matter of fact, that film was, my agent gave to NBC, and I got hired in that January by NBC in New York City to go to work for them.
Wow. Rapid ascent.
Rapid
again.
ascent.
What's with you and the rapid ascents?
But again, it's not. That's one of those things nobody ever understands of all that came before. When I was at Buffalo, I did a radio show, and my college roommate at the time, who was still a good friend of mine, he remarked, he goes, Glenn, you're a starter on a Super Bowl team, and you're doing a radio show from the chips aisle at the Piggly Wiggly. It wasn't a Piggly Wiggly. That's how he says it. I go, yeah, I want to learn this business. I want to be good at this. And then in Kansas City, I did a television show where we talked about the game, but then I went out and I previewed, or I gave a preview kind of a preview of a restaurant in town, where we went on site and we cooked with the chef, and we told what they did and why they were special for Kansas City. And then when I was in New York, I did the coaches shows, and anytime someone wanted something, I did it. And so I worked at that for a long time. It's just when I got the shot, I hit it.
Now, you mentioned earlier, you've got 2 twins. who are now off to college. Both of them graduated from high school this spring. Both of them set to play college sports, but of course, a lot of fall sports have been canceled or at least postponed for this upcoming season. How have you handled those disappointments with your kids, specifically on missing out those seasons with them and with the other young athletes that you know?
So first off, one of the things with my kids, they handled it for me. They were brought up, the expectation in our family is you'll play a team sport. Doesn't mean you have to stick with it. You have to stay with it for one season. You can pick whatever sports you want and you can do whatever you want, but you always have to at least play one team sport. And they always have, and they found their niche. My oldest two played soccer, and then my twins were playing, my daughter played volleyball, my son football. And through the course of playing team sports, you learn lessons. And so they were asked, and they wrote a letter to the students or the seniors in Tucson. And it said, sports teaches us that things end abruptly. You don't always win the game. The clock ticks off. It's over. And that's what's happened right now. Our seniors year is over. It didn't happen the way we thought, but the game's over. So let's move on and go to the next thing. That's what sports teach us. And I was thrown aback because it's exactly what I would have told them. There's nothing you can do. You can't control this. So make the best of it. And on the flip side, the only thing I like to tell them when I know they're feeling down, I know they start feeling bad about things, I go, nothing's happening to you that's not happening to every other senior in the country right now. Just remember, it's not to you. It's not happening to you. It's just happening. It's an event. And now how you respond will determine the outcome of this event.
That's a great perspective. Great perspective. Just a couple more questions for you, Glenn. You've been great. So thank you so much for your time. Along that same vein, Pac-12 sports not happening until January 2021 at the very earliest. Do you believe that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten made the correct decision in saying no to sports for fall?
Here's what I think, and here's what I believe. I think Dr. Robbins and the rest of the presidents and the ADs made the right decision with the information they had at the time, the climate of uncertainty at the time, and all the things that would have had to have happened to move forward. I don't like the decision. I want football. I don't like those decisions because I want kids to have that chance, and I want people to take their own risk and not be told. But I completely understand and think they made the right decision with the information they had at the time they had it.
Do you think a spring football season is feasible at this point?
I think it's feasible. I just don't think it's smart. And it hurts me to say that because someone's going to suffer in this, no matter what, whether it be the seniors who graduate, the kids coming in, rosters change, whatever. But football, there's a reason they don't play club football. Every other sport just about has a high school season and a club season. Football, you can't do that. It is too violent. It's too damaging to the body and too damaging mind-wise for the amount of mental prep it takes every week to do that job. And I don't think it would be healthy for the kids mentally or physically to play in the spring and then be asked a very short turnaround to turn around and play right again in the fall. I think our injuries in the fall would skyrocket. I think we'd have attrition of kids mentally not wanting to be there and not wanting to do it. That to me worries me a lot more than actually the current situation. I think that is a much longer lasting problem for those young men and women than the situation we're in right now.
Last question for you, Glenn. We have covered a lot of ground, or you have covered a lot of ground really in your career. Like we've said, broadcasting, playing football, coaching football, your love of food and wine. Is there anything in your career that you haven't tried that you hope to one day?
Wow. There's so much. In COVID, I learned to weld because I really wanted to learn to weld, and I've done that. I'm very excited. I've got projects going right now, so I'm doing some welding. There's tons of places I want to travel to. I'd love to speak some more languages. I've got a million things.
Some more languages? How many do you speak?
I speak one.
Oh, okay.
But I'd like to speak more. Language. Okay. I'd like to speak more language. No, I want to speak more languages. I mean, I speak a little, I can get by in Spanish, but I really like to learn, I figure if I can learn Spanish, well, then I know I can learn Italian and French and all the Romance languages.
Portuguese, yeah.
Move on to some of the other ones. And I'd love to do that. And I think that'll happen. I think there's a million things I want try and do and be better at. So there's a long list. I'll get to them eventually.
A man of many, many interests, a Renaissance man, if you will.
I don't know about that, but
I'll say it for you. It's fine.
thank you. Thanks.
Well, Glenn, you have been absolutely spectacular. Thank you again for sharing your time with me. Greatly appreciate it. Any advice for current Wildcats on your way out?
Yeah, don't be a tourist in life. Be a traveler. A tourist sees what he came to see, and a traveler sees everything around him.
Wise words. I'm going to write that one down.
You're not coming to college to just get that degree. You're coming to college to experience it. Have fun. Get out there and live.